Welcome to Physicians Keepers. Each episode features honest conversations with physicians, sharing moments that shaped them, challenged them, or taught them something worth passing on. These stories come from every corner of a physician's life: the clinic, OR, family, finances, mental health, leadership, and personal growth. If a story can help another doctor feel seen or strengthened, it belongs here. It's about honesty, courage, and community true storytelling. If you are looking for connection or a reminder that you are not alone in navigating this profession, you are in the right place. Hello and welcome to another episode of Physicians Keepers. I'm so excited to have you here today. If you are watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, it's indeed an honor to have you here. And we're going to have another exciting time today listening to our guests. And thank you so much, Dr. Temi, for volunteering to be a guest here on Physicians Keepers. If you've never heard of Physicians Keepers, so what we do here, we have physicians come in and just share stories about their life, their journey, anything that will make another physician feel heard and supported, anything to pretty much uh, help another doctor be a physician's keeper. And Dr. Temi Ajao is going to be an awesome physician's keeper as we dive deep into her story. So I'm just going to go ahead and share her bio. So Dr. Temi is a first-generation Nigerian American. She was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. She trained in psychology from the State University of New York at Binghamton and earned her medical degree from George Washington University. She completed her residency in emergency training, and currently she is the founder of Money Mindset MD, and she's enjoying her time with locums with her ER training. So thank you, Dr. Temi, for joining us here today.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for having me. When you told me about your platform and what you do to kind of, expose physician stories and have people have a platform to be able to like be vulnerable and talk about, their experiences as a physician, whether it's being an entrepreneur or just, being a physician, mom, wife, single, whatever it is, having that platform to say, hey, look, there's somebody that's gone through something, they've gotten over it, or they're working through it, and here is how you can also change or adjust or pivot, So,
yes.
Yeah.
appreciate you here today. So we have quite a journey to tell with you. You are currently a money coach, I'll put it that way, for physicians. Um, before you got into that, I mean, you had some pivots and you had some turns in your journey. Who were you as a physician before Money Mindset MD, and what were you chasing at that time?
Oh, yeah. So let me see. Let me go back to why I even became a physician in the first place. So in my family, my mom and my grandmother, they're nurses. So my grandmother back in Nigeria, she's then basically a midwife, type of nurse. And so she basically spent most of her time traveling through like Abuja and different areas in Nigeria. And so I'm like, oh, it makes sense that part of that is in my bloodstream now.
The locals, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
the locums, And so, healthcare has always been in our family, but as far as like my immediate family, I'm the first physician. And I knew that I wanted to be a physician when I was 12 years old. And that story came from like, I had gone and done some volunteer work in New York with a doc who was internal medicine, and we saw some patients on rounds, and they were like, back then, AIDS was like really a thing. And so seeing those patients and how they were suffering, I was like, oh, I think I want to help people who are sick and, make them feel better. So that's how I became a physician. And so
That's
that was
amazing.
my journey, that was my journey. And ultimately, I did want to do global emergency medicine. And so that was my whole path throughout like medical school, residency. In medical school, I did I did a program where, I did all this medical volunteer work, Ghana, Malawi, all of that. I did that in residency as well. And so I was going to go ahead and do global health fellowship and do the academic route. And it's going to be this, publish papers, talk about infectious disease, yada, yada. But then as we know, medical school, especially when you're first generation, you are going in, for me, there was no money to pay for school.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and even for majority of people, I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking hundreds of thousands of debt. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I came out of GW with about close to $500,000 of student loan debt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and for some reason, for me, I've always been into like tracking my money, keeping track of where I'm going. I always wanted to be like really like set myself up, and I know that okay, I have this amount of money saved and set aside for retirement. Like that's just always been my thing. Even in residency, I was like moonlighting and making some money on the side, paying off debt, doing those type of things. But at that time, I guess back in 2017, there was the whole like, um, uh, the physician repayment program.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was when they were like first dealing it out. And so a lot of people at that time was like, well, you never know what the government is going to do with that. So it's
Yeah.
best when you listen to all those podcasts,
Yeah.
physician podcasts, finance podcasts, it's like, well, you might as well just like consolidate all your student debt and have a low interest rate, and
Yeah.
then now and live like a resident for the next 3 to 5 years, pay off all your debt. So
Yeah.
that was the track and the journey that I was like going. So I ended
Yeah.
up doing that when I finished residency. I was like, I had loans from probably 10 different like, creditors. They're
Yeah.
all student loans, but they were, some were personal, some were federal,
Tuition.
you know what I mean? Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and then at that time, the student interest rates were like about 8.6%. So it's super
Yeah.
high.
Mm.
Now I know that we had some issues with predatory lending at that time back in 2000,
Yes.
So anyway, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to consolidate all of this, bring it down to like one or two lenders so I don't have to keep on dealing with like sending checks to different people. I don't
Different
got
people.
time.
Where
And
is
so,
this one from again?
yeah, right. And so I ended up doing that, and I ended up consolidating into one student loan, one major like student loan company.
Yeah.
So that was my focus. I'm like, okay, I'm going to work hard. I went out into community instead of
Yeah.
going out and doing fellowship because I said, oh, if I wanted to work as a global emergency physician, I can always do that. I don't necessarily need to go into fellowship.
Fellowship.
Or I could go back and do fellowship later. So that was my thought process. Um, Now, the journey took a little shift because at that time, when I finished residency, shortly after I met my husband, and then shortly after that, we started having children. We get married,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and you start having to wear like big girl panties. You know,
Yes.
clothes start coming up,
The
and
sequence changes.
the sequence changes. Just
Yeah.
suddenly you're suddenly the money you have is now starting to go to other places.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and a lot of us we don't get that financial education. From
Yeah.
like childhood or like so. No one in my family was really talking about finances other than just save your money, right?
Yeah.
Save your
Yeah.
money. Or even
Uh,
like back in the day, the only thing that I learned about maybe, investing or growing your money, and even at that, when you think of it, it's not really, was this susu thing. I don't know if
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
your
Yeah. Yeah.
parents,
Yeah.
yeah,
I know.
so
I know that.
you know that, right? Yeah. So for for anyone listening that may not know what susu is, it's just like a group of people come together and they're like put a certain amount of money away every week or every month, and then once
It
they get
rotate
that big
around.
pot, they rotate around. Someone collects, and then you can continue, but there's no interest on that money like
There
that's
isn't.
growing. So when you think about it, it's like it doesn't really make sense. But I guess it forms community. So
It does.
that's all I knew about finances. So I was like, I need to learn about this. I need to
Yeah.
understand my money. I need to know where my money is going. I need to, I need to grow it. So of course I had a financial advisor. And so we would talk about like saving, putting a certain amount away for taxes, putting a certain amount away for investment, putting a certain amount away for debt pay down. My mentality at the time was I was very debt averse, very, very debt averse.
Yeah.
Now being a money coach, I understand what that mindset was. But at the time when I'm looking back, I
Yeah.
just knew that anytime I saw debt, I would literally have like anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have anxiety because I would be worried that like, well, what's going to happen in the future, or what if I can't pay it off? And then they talk to you about like, oh, you need to make sure you have your disability insurance, because God forbid
Yes.
you can't work as a physician. How are you going to get rid of that $500,000 worth of debt?
Yeah.
So there's all these things that are in your mind.
Yeah.
And I wasn't articulating it at the time, but it was there in the subconscious, like just kind
Yeah.
of there in the background. And it was shaping my actions and all the things that I was doing at that time. So
Because it does
yeah,
bubble to the surface, right? Well, you think
to the surface.
it's a simmer, slow, slow, slow simmer, but then it does start to bubble. Yeah.
It starts to bubble, especially when you don't address it, or you don't even know. And
Yeah.
so at that time now, so now I'm working in the community. So I finished residency. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do everything as perfect. Like I'm trying to be perfect in my finances, because us beautiful physicians, we love to be. I
Yes.
don't know about you, but I have a planner. I have my little sheet. I have to write everything down, check my boxes
Mhm,
of
mhm.
I've done everything right.
Yeah.
And so I did all of that. I had my financial advisor. I set up my retirement plans. I set up even my kids that
Disability.
weren't existent at that time. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to get ready for them too. Just planning, like worried.
Yeah.
And that was coming from a place of worry, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's in the subconscious. So now I'm working in the community as an emergency physician, community emergency medicine, and not academics.
Yeah.
So when I first get out, the group that I worked for was a physician-owned group. And that physician-owned group, the pay was great in Houston area. Pay was
Yeah.
great. They paid us a base salary, and then they paid us RVU. RVU basically was, okay, the number of patients that you see, this is the amount of money that you're going to get.
Yeah.
Over the years, that number that you needed to see just kept increasing. And so I'm working a high volume, high acuity site, stroke center, cardiac, chest pain center. You have acute, like all this acute care stuff that's coming in.
Yeah.
I'm seeing about 2 patients an hour in a 9-hour period. So that ends up, and actually I'm seeing more than that. So it ends up
Yeah. Yeah.
being
Yeah.
where I'm seeing about 25 to 27 patients in 9 hours.
Yeah.
That is not healthy. That is not it's not sustainable,
Yeah.
especially when you have really sick patients. But at that time, coming out of residency, you take it as a badge of honor. Oh,
Yeah.
I can turn through. I can see all these patients. I can do all these things. I can
Hmm.
intubate. I can central line. I can
I
right.
can,
So
and you say I'm multitasking. That's what you tell yourself.
yeah, you're
It's like I'm a great
multitasking.
multitasker. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I'm
Lay it
great
on
at
me.
multitasking, honey. Yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
phenomenal at this.
Yeah.
So over the years, that number kept increasing. That number that I needed to see per hour to make my same salary kept
Yeah.
increasing. So I'm actually watching my salary decrease over the years.
Hmm.
So I'm like, this isn't making any sense. Now, of course, there's not just one mouth to feed, there's like four. So expenses are also rising.
Right.
So
Yeah.
income is going this way, expenses are going this way. And suddenly I'm seeing myself, I'm like paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Was like so much financial anxiety for me. I can put a
Yeah.
name to it now, but
Yeah.
it was so much financial anxiety. And that was also part of the things that were burning me out, because I kept thinking, well, what are some ways I can increase my income? And we as physicians, we always say, well, there's nothing wrong with just picking up an extra shift.
Yes. And so at the free time that you're supposed to have to rest and recuperate, then you're like, I need to pick up something else. I need to do that. So then you don't show up refreshed or regenerated because you're worn out from what you just did the whole week you're supposed to be relaxing.
The whole week you're supposed to be relaxing,
Yeah.
right? Then you add, for me, I love my family. I'm grateful to God for having my children, but at the same time, like that transition of going from being single, not having children, to now it's like I'm doing everything all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like I'm learning how to be a physician. I'm learning how to be a wife. I'm learning how to be a mom. I'm
Now you
learning
want to
how
be
to,
present for them too,
I
because you
want to
don't
be
want to be the
present.
busy mom that they're
The
like, Mommy,
busy,
this person's
yeah.
mom was there for read with the author and you are not there.
You were not there. You were not there. And so, that was my life for a number of years where I was just on autopilot. I was on autopilot. I would wake up, I would do my breastfeeding, whatever I needed to do. Then I'd take my pump with me. I, run off to work. It's not like they had anywhere in the hospital that was
Yeah.
really conducive for me to pump in the ER. The lactation room was always, 10,000 miles away. So,
Yeah.
doing all of those things, rushing, trying to be everything everywhere, be perfect, check all the boxes, be a perfect wife, mom, uh, PTO, blah, blah, all of that. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, I got to a place of burnout, and it was a slow creep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a slow
Yeah.
creep. I didn't recognize it at the time. I just knew that I got to a point where I was like, I don't think I even want to do medicine anymore
Yeah. Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
so exhausted. And I was like, I was tired of at that time now. So when I talked about the physician owned group that I was in, so after about 3 or 4 years in that group, they now sold it over to a private equity group. So
Mhm.
now private equity, as we know now, a lot of them are, they have their tentacles all over medicine.
Yeah.
And so now with that, you have even added more pressure. You have patient satisfaction scores. They have all these metrics that don't really,
You have to meet, otherwise, yes.
meet. It doesn't
Takes points
really
away.
takes points
Those
away,
points affect your finances. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
exactly. So you understand. And,
Yes. We have those metrics in primary care. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So you have these metrics. So you're trying to meet up with these demands. You have these metrics. You're like, oh my God, my. Then the number of patients you're seeing. Well, maybe if I see just an extra like 2 or 3, maybe that'll increase the pay a little bit more because I'm
Yeah.
trying to meet up with the rising demands of the expenses in the home. And then after a while, it was like I got to a point in, I believe this was like 2022, after being on
Yeah.
autopilot and doing the
Yeah.
chasing subconsciously. And, my passion, like I said, was to do global emergency medicine. But I was like, I'm not doing any of the passion work that I thought I was going to be doing. And
Yeah.
I felt like this was permanent. I felt like I was stuck.
Yeah.
I felt like I was stuck. And then at work, when like another ambulance truck came in, I would literally be like, oh, I would be so upset. And you find, sometimes you have docs who are like banging on the computer. They're not being the nicest sometimes. And it's
Yeah.
not because they're just awful people. It's just because that lack of self-care, you haven't poured back into yourself.
Yeah.
I wasn't into any of that self-care stuff that I am in doing now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got to the point where, I was on shift. It was like another cardiac arrest was coming in, another this, another that, the overstimulation. And I said, this is it.
Yeah.
I just, my body broke. My
Yeah.
body was
Yeah.
just, I can't do this anymore. Not like this. Not like this.
The body keeps score, and that's one of the things you don't realize. You think, and it's not sometimes like you mentioned, it's not just it doesn't just all come crashing. It's just a slow, slow, slow
Mm-hmm.
trickle. And one day
Mm-hmm.
it's like, why did she act like that? Like, where did this come from? But no, it's been coming.
It's been coming.
Yeah.
And so I was at that place at my hospital for 6 years. And I told my medical director, I loved him, loved I loved all the people I work with, but I was like, it's not you, it's me. I can't
Yeah.
work here anymore. I was like,
Wow.
I can work maybe part-time or maybe PRN, but I had no plan really. But my body said, no, stop here. My nervous system was like, we
Yeah.
can't do this anymore, not in this capacity.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I think April of that year, giving in my notice that I was like cutting back. And then I think July of that year was when I now like kind of walked away and I started doing more PRN work.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd work 5 shifts a month and just
So you,
relax.
you so you didn't have a plan. Like you just at that.
No, I didn't have a plan. I mean, I talked to my CPA and I
Yeah.
talked to my financial advisor and I said, what would it look like if I cut back?
Yeah.
And what I realized was there was a lot of also childhood, maybe, childhood wounds, because we didn't grow up having much.
Yeah.
My mom's a single mom. She worked very hard to, make sure that all of us were successful. But, she was like, she made I mean, she made $1 out of like pennies. Like, how does she do it? You know, it was like I was like, you were a financial genius. We never lacked. You know, we
Yeah,
had everything
yeah,
that we needed: clothes, food, shelter. Like we had all
yeah,
the basic necessities. But as far as like, any excess, that wasn't the case. And so for
yeah.
me, I always vowed to myself, like, oh, I want to be able to do more than
Do
that
the
for,
excesses. Yeah,
do the excess for my family. And of course, there's all that, I want the lifestyle, right? I want the
yeah.
nice things. I want
Hmm. Yeah,
and I would say that when I got out, I wouldn't say I went overboard, but I did get the house. We did get a nice vehicle, luxury vehicle.
yeah,
And then pretty much everything else went into like retirement savings. But what I was doing, I think at the time that wasn't making any sense was I was trying to be so perfect in my finances that like I wasn't giving room for like, well, you know what, maybe this month, if I don't have the opportunity to fully max out my retirement, it's okay. I can
yeah,
maybe do it the following month. Like
yeah,
I didn't have the mindset that I could actually turn on and off my money engine. And that's what
yeah.
I always talk about. Like, especially doing locums now, I'm in a place where I can ramp up how much I want to make
Yeah.
and I can turn it
Down
down.
and down. Yeah.
And I'm in complete control of that. But when I was with my full time in one location, I felt trapped. I felt like, okay, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to make past this income threshold, you
Yeah.
know? And then also at that time, I was also interested, very much interested into real estate because my dad was like, oh, you need to get into real estate right away. He was an MBA holder, and then he has a bunch of rental properties. And so, with his MBA, steady income, quote
Yeah.
unquote, when he worked as a banker, there was always bank mergers that
Yeah.
he would lose his primary source of income because he would lose
Mm.
his job because he was a top executive, and then they always like hack that position, and it
Yeah.
happened to him twice, and it was his rental income that like kept him afloat and still keeping him afloat to this day. So I had always said, okay, I see where that was coming from, like, and I see why you were pushing me towards that. So I've always said, okay, I need to make sure to have some rental income and also be able to like have some tax, benefits
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
Because we make so much, as physicians, and we're taxed at that highest, 35%, 40% bracket. So we have to be very strategic about where we're putting our money,
So
you
that
know?
just a funny story that I remember the first time, they don't tell you these things in residency, right? I
Yeah.
remember the first time that I got my first paycheck. I was looking at it in disbelief. I was like, this can't be right. I remember calling my husband. I'm like, something's wrong.
Something's
Like,
wrong.
and I
Yes.
called a friend of mine who had been working. I'm like, is this correct? Like, what am I saying? But yes,
Mhm.
we don't realize how much we are taxed until
Tax.
that first paycheck hits you. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh, I
Yes.
practically work 1/3 of my working hours went to the government.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what it
Oh
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
easily.
yeah.
Easily. Let me tell you a story with my money from the beginning too. So as a ER physician most of us are 1099, but there's some of us that do W-2. So my whole career I've always been 1099. So 1099 is going to require you to now like pay yourself, pay the taxes on your own, like
Hmm.
set up your
Hmm.
own retirement, set up all these things. And if you don't know what to do or where to go, there's no like, I mean, now of course there's a lot of guides, but
Yeah,
10 years ago, there wasn't that many people like really giving you the lowdown on how to do
yeah,
this, right?
yeah,
So I would like do some extra research on like, okay, so what do I need to do? Okay, fine, I need to set up an LLC. So I did that, set up the LLC. And then I now, was looking for a CPA. My first CPA wasn't great. My first CPA was not good. And that is so important, like when you're trying to like build your wealth and your
yeah,
journey. No, like hiring the right people that can help you and make sure to put
yeah.
your money in the right places. If not, they can be very detrimental to you. So the first people I had, it was a recommendation, and it was of course me trying to, you know, keep it within our network.
Yeah.
So but they weren't really responsive to my emails. And when you're 1099, there's a certain amount of taxes that you're supposed to pay every quarter. And so I thought I was doing like all the right things. Okay, I'm gonna just put I send it to the IRS,
Yeah, yeah.
quarter, da da da. And but they weren't filing the appropriate tax forms for me.
Mm.
So it appeared to the IRS I wasn't paying
You're not
tax.
paying. Yeah.
And so now I'm getting these emails and like letters that, hey, you owe this, you owe that. I'm like, oh, what? No, I can't owe that. There's no, it's not possible for me to owe this because I've paid. And at that time, I was paying like $20,000 every
Yeah.
quarter to the
Yeah.
IRS, thinking like, okay, I'm doing everything right. And, I now like had to go back to them and say, hey, look, they said that these forms weren't filled out. Is there a reason? I didn't know what those forms were. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that they had to be filled out every quarter. Like, that's not even
Yeah.
my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we pay the professionals to do that.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of one of the initial like experiences that I had with like money and like IRS and like trying to make sure like things were on track. And so I had to now leave them. I found another guy who was like great, fixed everything, put all the forms together, got us, back on track. But my guy, so the second CPA, he's like super conservative. I had him over a number of years, super conservative. So it got to a point where I was like, okay, this is great. Like everything's on track with our money, but I feel like our money's not growing.
Yeah.
I really felt
Yeah.
like this money is not growing. And I was like, there's people that make way less than us as physicians, but
Yeah.
yet, because they have the strategy in place and they know exactly where to put their money, I felt like they were, like things were just kind of progressing along
Thriving. Yeah.
fast, you know? And then another thing too, that as first generation, um, high earners, we also sometimes become the bank
Yeah.
for our, that's another
Absolutely.
thing that we have to talk about. And
Yeah.
so, if we're not careful, you can spend years sending money to XYZ,
And you're from,
spending,
I mean, I'm from Nigeria, like so I kind of know the deal with
you know
that,
the
right?
deal. You know the deal. And so, and
It's
that's
like
what
your money, my money.
your money is, and so if I'm your bank, I'm not even getting any interest. Do you see what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
that's how we have to start looking at our money is like, well, how if we're a bank and you want to be able to like help other people, you can help them, no problem. I'm
Yeah.
all about helping people that are in need. But if it becomes a pattern, or
Especially
if
if it's to
you're
the detriment of yourself, right?
it's exactly, and
Yeah.
to the detriment of them too,
Yeah.
because now they're not thinking outside of the box on how to earn income on their own because they're like, oh, I have somebody already that's ready to send this to me. And so now they become hyper dependent. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And so with that, so there's so many things along the way that, I found out about myself with money that I didn't know until I started making money because I wasn't making money. We were
Yeah.
broke as residents.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, okay, whatever I can eat, ramen noodles, yeah, that's fine. I'll be fine. I'll go just drink some water and gari for the
Yeah.
night. I'm good. But now, as high income earners, how do we start building this wealth?
Yeah.
A lot of physicians, we earn millions of dollars for the hospital system every year.
We do.
Over the course of our career, we earn millions of dollars, but a lot of us sometimes don't even end up in retirement with millions.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because of different things. We're too much debt, we're overspending, we're not being strategic about where we're putting our money, and then we're also not understanding the tax code and how to like strategically invest so that we can get deductions and we can
Yeah.
get more of our money, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Keep more of it. Yeah.
Keep more of it, and so that's why how I started pivoting into the money mindset MD because I was like, I surely can't be the only one that feels like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I at that time I was like 4 or 5 years out, 6 years out, and I was like, okay, I mean, this is great, but like, where did my money go?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had some in retirement, yeah, but I felt like, well, that's it, like, so. now I started thinking, okay, what do I need to do to start being more strategic about where to put my money? So I started reading I started reading different books, tax-free wealth.
Yeah,
I started reading a lot of things about money and money mindset, and trying to understand like how can you be, because the concept of being a millionaire and then still feeling broke, there's some
exists.
disconnect.
Yeah,
There's a disconnect there because if growing up we're used to not having much and we survived, how can you still feel at this income level feel like you're still struggling to survive?
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
all goes back to that whole scarcity mindset.
Yes, yeah, you
Yeah.
did. You mentioned that, and like I said, I heard that a lot, right? Because it's like before I wasn't making this money, I felt like okay, by the time I get to this point,
Mm-hmm.
my mindset should shift where I feel like okay,
Mm-hmm.
now the money's here,
Feel comfortable.
should yes, but then it's
Mm-hmm.
never it's like what okay, how do I make more of it?
Mm-hmm.
How you keep pushing yourself
You keep
and
pushing. Yeah.
so long as the system sees someone who's willing to, I mean, no one's going to tell you not to pick up that extra shift. No
No.
one's going to tell if you say you want to see 50, hey, go ahead and see
Go
50,
ahead.
right?
Yeah, this is good for us.
So like you said, you keep chasing it but the mindset is scarcity. It's a
Mm-hmm.
scarcity mindset. So how were you able to overcome that? I mean, because it sounds like you did, and not just to the point where now it's not just you have enough to now help others. Because there are people
Yes.
that have enough knowledge where they can just manage themselves, but then you now had enough to pour out into others. How did
Yeah.
that come about?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I really think it was a God factor. Like I'm a
Yeah,
Christian,
yeah,
and I just started going back to like the principles of the Bible and like understanding that my God is my provider.
yeah, yeah,
My God is my provider. I
yeah.
have everything that I need, you know, and all the principles of coaching, because I did end up in a physician coaching program. And so there's a lot of mindset like work that I had done over the years. And so really, I know, mindset always seems like it's like, I don't know, esoteric, like you can't
It's the
really pinpoint it.
foundation.
It's the
Like
foundation.
it's the foundation. I mean,
Yeah.
you said you mentioned something and kind of struck with me because, there was a time where I felt like, I needed to work harder to get. I felt like, okay, God, I need this. I need this.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I just kept chasing it. And
Keep chasing.
at some, that worry kept burning in my mind. And I
Yeah.
remember distinctively, and I always have to keep reminding myself about it when God just kind of told me, it's like, look, I'm your source
Yes.
first,
Mm-hmm.
not your job,
Mm-hmm.
not your spouse. Like,
Yep.
I'm your source.
Yes.
If I'm your source, that's you have to ground yourself in that, then you can never run out.
You can never run out.
If you make me your source, you
Mm-hmm.
won't have to keep chasing
You won't have
everything.
to chase. You will never lack. Like you will never lack. You know,
Yes, but
and the warfare is in our mind. Like
it
literally,
is.
it is what we are thinking about every single day. And so yes,
Yeah,
the thoughts might creep in and say like, "Are you gonna ever have enough? Are you sure?" What would like the worry? So I
yeah,
now had to combat that worry. Like, okay, what am I worried about?
yeah,
Put a name
yeah,
to it, write it down. Okay, this is what I'm worried about. I'm worried I might not have enough. Okay, so what is the enough? Now put a number to that enough. And even
yeah,
the number may not even be what you really need, but at least you
yeah,
have that goal in mind where you're like,
yeah,
okay, this is what I'm working towards. Because a lot of the times when we don't know where we're going, we just keep chasing and chasing into the abyss. So now
yeah,
if you say, this is my number, if I need it, great, but at least I have a target, I have a goal.
yeah,
Same thing like when we wanted to be doctors. We said, okay, I want to be a doctor. So you have a target, places I had to apply. So there's intentional actions and steps that you take. So that was where I said, okay, I need to, first lay that out, right? Now, what are the emotions that's there? What is causing me the anxiety? Where am I fearful? Where, inner
yeah,
work. It's inner work. Like, were there things that made me feel like ashamed? I mean, of course, I felt some shame when I felt like my IRS situation was going on. And I was like, um, but I realized that it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
I realized that I just didn't have that educational financial background at the time, and I'm here learning. And so now I'm learning, and now that I've learned these things, I can now pass that on to someone else, and I can pass that on to my children so that they would have that understanding as well, and they can be set up for themselves too. And so I did all of that. So it's like having the awareness, now also, putting a name to some of the emotions, and then now doing the work, like actions. Okay, so you feel like your expenses are here and the income is here. What do you need to do to change that? So you
Yeah.
ask the questions. So like become very curious. Become curious with your finances. Look at where things could be leaking every month. Is there something that maybe subscriptions that you have that you don't need? Cut that out. And I've never been of the school of thought of like, okay, now live like you're in poverty for 5 years. No, no. I just,
Yeah.
for me, I was like, I've kind of lived a lot of my life that way, especially my early childhood. So
Yeah.
I don't want to live like that as an adult and as an
Yeah.
attending. No, that's not it. So what else do I need to do? And so that's where I was like, okay, I need to really understand where this money is going. Because I think once we know exactly where our money is going, then you can make adjustments and make changes. And so is there some, consumer debt that you have that you need to take care of? Yep, start cutting that back. Is there a way to earn more income without burning yourself out? Yes. Think about maybe a side hustle, different businesses, a social media platform, like other ways in which you can make money. Um, don't be afraid of the debt too, because a lot of millionaires, they leverage debt in order
Yeah.
to become millionaires. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of the times we think of debt and we see it and it's like, oh, it's bad.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
automatically associate it with being bad. And that's because, of course, there's principles in our Bible that says it's better for you
Yeah.
to be lender, not
Lender
borrower.
than a borrower.
So
Yeah.
those are some things that are subconscious in us that we now are like, oh my God, we can't have debt. We can't have debt. And
Yeah.
so I work with some of my clients on some of those mindset processes. Like, okay, you've accumulated debt. So what? It is there.
Yeah.
Majority of Americans, majority of people in the world have debt. Actually, right now, because of the way our economy is going, I mean,
We're
a
in
lot of
debt.
people are getting squeezed out. We're in
Yeah.
debt,
Yeah.
you know? And that's because sometimes, look, you use it as a service for whatever you need at that moment and at that time. It might have been like there was a moment in time where your income wasn't enough and you needed to leverage it. That's fine. Now you get to a better place. You can pay it off. There's so many, you can do locums, right? You can do locums, make two times what you typically make, and then now use that towards like offsetting some debt. Use that locums income towards investments so that you can
Yeah.
get different money. They said that you need like what 7 income streams to be wealthy, right? So it's not just like being rich. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
how
Yeah.
about wealthy? So you want dividend income, right? So if you're investing in stocks, and then now those stocks now give you dividend, reinvest that dividend so that you have money in the market and it's growing over time.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in automatic investments too, because when you do it automatically, you're not thinking about it the first time. Like as your check comes, the money's automatically going towards your investments.
Initially. Yeah.
We have that tendency to lean towards, at least I know for me, and I know a lot of people that way too. We lean towards, well, what debt do I have? I need to pay it all off all at once. We get this rush, and you
Yeah.
almost have a dopamine high because you're like, oh, I'm champion.
I
I
paid it
paid
down.
it off.
Yeah.
Now you paid it off, and you're at zero.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is you get to zero, especially if you're paycheck to paycheck, you get to zero. You're not waiting for your next check expense, something happens, life happens.
It does.
There's nothing that we can do. There's always going to be life that happens. Now, what ends up happening? You end up having to go back into that credit
With
card.
it.
You may not want to. So I suggest make sure you start, as you're paying off your debt, make sure you're building your savings at the same time so that you can always tap into that savings if you need to. So you're not going back to the credit card. Because remember, the credit card is taking 30 cents off the dollar each time, you
Yeah.
know? And so it gets harder and harder the more and more you accumulate it. So it's better to just like focus on building up your savings account. And so now when you've built up that savings and you have a surplus there, you can now say, okay, this is the amount, maybe a third will go towards your debt pay down, a third will go towards investments, and then put some money away for taxes. It's very simple principles, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotionally, there's things that need to be regulated when you first get your money. And a lot of
Yeah.
the times it's best to just automate it too. So you're not like picking at it and, moving it around yourself. So automate everything. So the minute that money comes in, you're not even seeing it. It's going into an individual brokerage account. You're not having to worry about it. And so those are the things that, being very objective with your money, right? So analyzing it once a month. It doesn't have to be that you're looking at your accounts every single day, or like if you're married, have a money date with your spouse and figure
Yeah.
out like where are we going with our finances for the month, for the year, have a plan, And a lot of the times, with couples, that's where sometimes there's some differences because we all grow
Yeah.
up different when it comes to money, right? You
I
might
have
have a
different money mindsets. Yeah.
we have different money mindsets. You might have a spouse that's more of a spender. You might have a spouse that's more of a saver. And us savers, we have a tendency of demonizing spenders.
We do.
We do, It's like, why are you spending and this and this and that?
And we who are the spenders, we also turn around and demonize the savers too, because
Exactly. Because you're just saving all this and then what about?
I want to enjoy myself now.
I want to enjoy my life. Exactly. And usually with married couples, it doesn't matter which sex, but there's one always marries the other typically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and finding that balance, I think is super important, and trying to understand like, okay, where's that person's mindset coming from, and like, okay, how do we grow this together, knowing that you have a tendency to do this with money and I have a tendency of doing that with money. Because if
Yeah.
we're not aligned when it comes to that money, it can become very difficult to build it
It
too.
can. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow,
yeah.
Dr. Temi, you've downloaded a whole lot of, I mean, just some incredible wisdom today when it comes to finances. So
Yeah.
I'm sure anyone who's listening to you who was kind of struggling this, I mean, I feel like there's some clarity
Uh-huh.
to them now, because you define, practicing medicine on your own terms. Right.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that's very big for you. And it sounds like through your journey, some lows, right? But through that,
Uh-huh.
you were able to define where you are right now in medicine. You're
Yeah.
enjoying it. You
Yeah.
are practicing, you're doing locums, and then you're not looking back and saying, I might, where is everything? Like you're in a
Mm-hmm.
good money mindset, which is all
Yeah.
about what your coaching is. So
Yeah.
fascinating, wonderful discussion today. Now, if anyone wants to find you, like they're like, I mean, I need to know more. Like I need to get more. Like I'm just scrambling.
Yeah.
Where can they reach out to you?
Yep. So you can find me on Instagram, Money Mindset MD. I also have a podcast. It's called the Money Mindset MD podcast with Dr. Temi. And yeah, basically all the social media platforms. My website is www.moneymindsetmd.com. Very easy I'm very active on Facebook as well, LinkedIn. So all the social media platforms, I'm there.
Well, we would definitely put all the link in the show notes, but it's been awesome listening to you today. Thank you. You've been a great physician's keeper, because that's what we're all about here. I'm sure your story,
Mhm.
your journey will definitely make another physician feel like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm. No,
I'm
we're
not
not.
the only one in this boat.
Not at
And
all.
I did get some wisdom. So if you are listening to me, and you're a physician and you have a story to tell, a journey, anything in your journey that you think would absolutely support, help another physician, please feel free to reach out to me, drremla@gmail.com. And that way, like I said, we can, share your story, benefit from it, and you can be an awesome physician's keeper like Dr. Temi has been today. And so I'm so excited to, I would definitely sign up and be listening because I do need, when it comes to financial, you can never feel like you know enough. And I definitely feel like I need to know some more.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I can stop chasing and start, overbooking myself.
Yes.
Yes, always, yeah, because there's no badge of honor that comes from you being burnt out. There's
No,
no
not at
like,
all. Absolutely not. No.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
you
Those
don't,
days are done. No, we're not doing that
yeah,
anymore.
no one gets the best of you if you're burnt out,
No,
Yeah,
nobody.
work
Yeah.
doesn't, your family doesn't, so those days are long gone. We
Mhm.
need to look out for each other, and having well-rounded information on different aspects, such as our money, is one of the ways that we can actively get in front of burnout and not wait until it hits us and then we start trying
Exactly.
to recover. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. The more money
yeah.
you have in your pocket, the more you're like, okay, I'm gonna stay home and rest and relax and, do the
Yes.
things that you enjoy, work out. Like I do all those things now. Work out 3 days a week. I'll spend some days just like laying down on my couch and just relaxing. And I'm like, never in a million years did I
Yeah.
think that I would get here. Like
Oh wow.
I want to be off. I just want to
Yeah.
be off. I don't want to
Oh
work.
wow.
It's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Justin, for giving us a glimpse of your awesome life. That's all. And we're looking forward to just seeing your journey and
Yeah.
just hearing your wisdom on your podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Physicians Keepers. I hope today's conversation gave you something useful to carry into your life or practice. If it resonated, share it with another physician who might need it. And if you have a story that could help someone else, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on social media or send me an email. See you in the next episode.